Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another 40k video from Bricky. So I am continuing on with his every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained, his part 1, my part 2. Because I am breaking this up into smaller videos, just because his video is about 2 hours long. So yeah, I'm breaking them up into smaller videos. But I have to say, this video here has been really good. You know, like the first set of videos he did, 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was, those were really good. But this one here is way better. It's like 2 videos in one, basically. He is telling us all about the factions, while he's also telling us about basically like the history of 40k. So he's kind of like weaving the story. So obviously, you know, starting with like the Necrons, and then going to the old ones to be like, can you cure us? You know, can we have immortality? And the old ones being like, piss off. And then of course, you know, look at 10 being like, hey, we gotcha. And then of course, you know, them becoming mechanical robots, and then leading into the war in heavens, and then of course, you know, them going after the Catan, breaking them, capturing them, and then taking a nap. You know, that's a lot of work, so they need a nap. And then of course, all those souls and stuff like that from the war in heavens going directly into the warp, leading us right into chaos. So yeah, I like the way he is, you know, weaving the story with the factions. That's really cool. So most likely after this, it will probably go right into Eldar, because you know, there's only, at the timeline, 3 Chaos Gods. You know, we're gonna let Eldar do their shenanigans, and then create the 4th Chaos God. And then after that, it will probably be the Imperium, most likely, unless something happened in between Eldar birthing Slaanesh and, you know, like the Horus Heresy and stuff like that, because that's when we get the Traitor Primarchs and stuff. But if not, yeah, it would be Eldar and then the Imperium. So yeah, I am totally enjoying this video. So yeah, he did a really good job on it. But yeah, I'm ready for part 2. So let's just jump right in and go right into chaos. Here we go.
The forces of chaos are beings that serve directly under their patron deity. There are 4 current gods of chaos at the moment: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. Each of them represent
so he's
various
going with
facets
Slaanesh.
of and emotions of sentient species, and play a great game against one another for total control over their realms. Interestingly enough, while their disciples have physical forms we can understand, the Chaos Gods do not have a physical visual that you can perceive in reality.
It would be kind of cool to see what they would look like, though. Not gonna lie, that'd be awesome to see what they look like.
Truly look like, though they are conveniently color-coded. Khorne
Well,
is
thank God for that.
Blood and
It's very
murder,
important to be color-coded.
carnage, and slaughter. He is the one who is most powered by the wholesale killing of any living thing. For Khorne cares not from where the blood flows. With a sacred number of 8, he is the lord of all things involving killing and blood and gore. The champions are extremely strong as well, with monumental muscles and extremely large weapons. A true analog to Khorne would be his greater demon, the Bloodthirster, an enormous muscle-bound flying devil with an axe so large it splits tanks in a single swing. They move into battle with armor of brass adorned by the skulls of their foes and pools of freshly spilt blood. This may appear to be quite frightening, of course, demonic, one might say. But in the world of chaos, all emotions feed one of these gods in one way or another. If you were to define Khorne with single words, you would use blood, carnage, murder, skulls. But you'd be missing out on important ones like strength, honor, prowess, courage, and skill.
Honor seems interesting.
Is not just about the wholesale slaughter of people. He is about the honor and power of martial combat. The true
that makes sense.
Strength there is in besting someone in physical strength and skill. Of course, a murderer would be someone who would feed Khorne.
Well,
but a soldier could feed Khorne. A martial artist or professional fighter could feed Khorne. A warrior, good or bad, feeds Khorne. A diplomat does not. A premier soldier does. A GoFundMe does not. This is what leads many mortals down the path of Khorne. For he will bless those.
Right, because a regular soldier will be like, man, I wish I was stronger to,
destructive.
to fight these guys, or this army is outnumbering us. I don't know if we can win.
The mad ones. Glorious battle awaits us today, for the world below has refused to surrender. Let us descend upon them with fury and rage, giving no quarter and sparing only those warriors who fight well enough to earn a place amongst us. As to the rest, their lives and possessions are ours, but their skulls are for Khorne. Normally, if I ever want to explain Khorne, I just kind of show them this clip.
I'd never stab you in the back, Shepard. Warriors like you and me, straight to the face.
Moving on, Tzeentch is the second god, the god of trickery and mischief, the changer of ways, the great conspirator, and the architect of fate. With a sacred number of 9, Tzeentch is truly the god of change in all of its forms, but there is an obvious undercurrent of mischief and cunning. Tzeentch is such a liar that his pants have gone thermonuclear. What the f*** is it? His favorite pastime is asking questions that have no answers while simultaneously making up answers on the spot to a question he didn't ask.
Have you ever had a dream that you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
He is such a conniving little bastard that every emotion of lying, of scheming, of trickery is a direct way to help feed him. An unfaithful partner, a politician, a spy. All these people feed Tzeentch in one way or another, and it doesn't matter if the intentions are good. Acceptance does not feed Tzeentch. Change does. Tzeentch doesn't care about your facts. He only wants opinions. Because he represents change, he also represents hope, though. Schemes are not always bad, and even the hope to make a better tomorrow is the change he seeks. Because he is the architect of fate and the master of sorcery, his presence is purely unknowable. Every depiction of a Tzeentchian demon contains more eyes than are necessary and more mouths than I know what to do with. It is a biblically accurate angel if the angel gaslit you into thinking birds are government drones. But are they? The creatures at his disposal adorn themselves with the knowledge of sorceries and the unknown, all to provide a mind-crushing experience. Fighting demons from outside of our reality is difficult enough, but fighting demons from unreality, purposely attempting to trick you, is a whole new thing entirely. And that is before we even get started on the gigantic bird of sorcery you're going to need to face. Do not ask which creature screams in the night.
Kind of crazy. In every game, like, it's always a Tzeentch thing.
It is my cry that wakes you in the night, and my body
Space Marine 2
in the shadow.
Tzeentch,
Tzeentch, and you are the puppet that dances.
Total War Warhammer, when they come after
is the one.
When they're coming after you if you're playing Archeon and stuff like that. Tzeentch again. So I wish games and stuff would mix it up a little bit. I like to see, throw some Nurgle or something like that. Do Slanesh or something different. I don't know what it is with why always Tzeentch. Colorful.
Of acceptance of rot and pestilence, the
grandfather Nurgle.
Papa Nurgle.
There he
Nurgle is the exact opposite of Tzeentch. Where Tzeentch believes in change and hope for a future, Nurgle believes in stagnation and the end of everything. At one point or another, we will all decay. We will all rot, and we will all end. And with a sacred number of 7, every single thing, pestilence, boil, and everything in between, comes under the great shadow and girth of Nurgle himself.
That's right.
For Nurgle, the plight of mortals is his fear and wine. And no matter how solid life might be,
pretty cool and very grotesque.
Everything will decay in the end. In the creation of life, there must be an end to
Right.
that life. And nobody has more creations to end lives than Grandfather Nurgle himself.
Mm-hmm.
Every boil, every blemish, every pus-filled wound and disease, every rot, and every plague is kept and concocted by Nurgle. This, humorously, keeps Nurgle as a jovial god. He is full of life and laughter, and by creating as many diseases as he possibly can, he shares that joy with mortals. I mean, his envoy is the great unclean one, and look at how happy he is. And there's a lot of him to love. A fear of death in general is feeding Nurgle.
Oh, that looks so
Disease makes him
cool.
stronger, but to pray for salvation
looks
for a wounded
badass.
loved one is to feed Nurgle. The timeless and inevitable fear that one day you will rot and decay is what gives him strength. The Peloton won't feed Nurgle. Licking the doorknob on a public bathroom certainly does. However, should you embrace your grandfather's gifts, you may find an end to your pain. Maybe. All mortal followers of the Chaos
Maybe.
Gods found themselves there in one way or another, either through the direct worship or the slow corrupting of their souls. But those that take Nurgle's gifts and embrace the decay of their bodies may end up being chosen among his few as a faithful servant. In doing so, you will be free of the pain caused by Nurgle's ailments, and you may even find yourself just as jovial and happy as he is. Maybe. His enemies shall wither and die. His allies shall wither and die. The universe and all within it shall wither
Everything
and
will die.
And when the great corruption has settled over
At
the
one
land
point,
and
everything will
permeated
die.
the very foundations of reality itself, then shall the Lord of all rise from the rot and ruin, spread his arms wide to reclaim all of his dutiful children. Those were the three major Chaos Gods for a very long time.
That's right.
Emboldened by war and death on a galactic scale. Ever present, but now fat on the suffering of a galaxy. One race, for a while, was able to elude the pull of chaos. An advanced race of psychically attuned aliens whose master over the physical world was so
Pizza.
strong that chaos could not glean from them the morsels of power they once had. Or so they couldn't. Not for a long while. 60 million years ago, in an attempt to combat the Necrons in Catan, the Old Ones made a new species.
The
One
Eldar.
with innate power in the warp and the ability to harness it with a mastery that was unseen by so many others.
Oh
A
my god, look at
mastery
the
so
old school
powerful,
artwork.
The Necrons retreated to sleep in order to wait it out. It was no longer a galaxy to be ruled by them, but instead begin the age of the... The
And
Eldar
so it
are a race of
begins.
pointed-eared humanoids that are all psychically attuned to the warp. If we're being meta here, these are space elves, and these elves ruled the galaxy in the time the Necrons went to sleep and humanity began to rise. The Eldar's empire was galaxy-wide and lasted for longer than
I never played
any
the
other
Eldar.
galactic power that we know of.
I
Their
did like some of the
understanding
models,
of all
though.
things
Some of the
was
models were really good.
exceptional. With every single one of
Lords.
them being psychers, they had the ability
Those
to
were cool.
master the warp and use it to their advantage. See, being a psyker is basically like being a wizard, or I guess in this case it's more of a sorcerer, since you are born with the gifts as opposed to learning them. In order to utilize your psychic abilities, however, you must then reach into the other dimension, into the warp, into hell for that power. So if you were to say, cast Fireball, your mind would reach into the warp, gather the strength,
Which is a dangerous thing to
rewrite
do.
reality, to then cast Fireball. Now, you might think to yourself, doesn't that mean if you are opening up a power to the warp, you may create a lot of risk to yourself because of all the horrible things we just talked about in the warp? Yes. However, in Warhammer 40k, willpower is a real, tangible thing, in the sense that in its own right, it can be weaponized.
You gotta make
Being
sure you max
strong
out that
of will
willpower stat,
means
though.
being strong of soul. And being strong of soul means you can resist the pull of the warp that much more. A more inexperienced psyker opens up a hole into the warp that is large, and that hole widens to get more power, allowing evil things to get in. A powerful psyker is able to open a very small hole, but with immense force to get the same amount of power with less risk.
Right.
The Eldar are
makes sense.
master psychers. Every single one of them can call upon the warp, and over millions of years they have perfected it so much so that they can weave structures out of it. In some species of the galaxy, they utilize the warp itself for interstellar travel.
That's
the Eldar
kind of cool.
Ain't having any of that noise. How about we utilize a fancy alternative mode of travel that is substantially safer than the old ones created called the webway? What about dying? Miss me with that. We no longer age. And if we do, we can just be reborn like that. Food, water, materials, we make things
all done.
out of distilled warp essence itself. We sing unreality into cathedrals to dine in. What truly
kind of cool
could the Eldari Empire possibly fear? The Eldari Empire's biggest fear was themselves.
Yep.
The society so perfect they wanted for naught. And this led them down dark and dangerous paths. When the base functions of society are no longer a problem for you, you tend to
get bored.
Experiment. Perhaps the medium rare steak on your plate would be better if it was elf meat. Hey, I'm not saying we should make cannibalism legal, but like, what's the issue with a little taste?
What's the harm?
Violent sports is one thing, but how come we don't do sports to the death? I mean,
was that a good game, Blood Bowl?
If both participants are willing and clear about it, like, what really is the problem there, you know?
I mean, they both consented.
Is in the eye of the viewer, and what is considered art
What's the
is
harm?
completely up to the concept of one's own interest. A canvas adorned with the blood of a man wronged is truly the visual poetry that our society needs. Hedonism, with a slow and consistent hedonism, the Eldar slid backwards into debauchery of the sort I cannot discuss on this YouTube video. Murder on stage, delicacies and drugs distilled from one another, the trade of slaves and concubines, and much worse. The Eldar physiology has their emotions heightened, and they can feel more than a human does. So while it can provide lows of pure despair, it can also provide greater highs than you have ever known. And swinging between the two of them was the Eldar game. The warp took notice of this heavily.
What you doing down there?
To react. On a galactic scale, the debauchery and the hedonism of the Eldar race caused levels of warp storm so pronounced and so volatile that it cut off interstellar travel for all those who used it. Communications between planets was removed, and a nightmarish era of old night began. This continued for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. The Eldar,
I know that happened after Sinesh's birth, but not before.
As they entered heights of more and more ecstasy, they needed more and more and more. Nothing was ever enough. More murder, more torture. It's art, it's delicacies, it's life. This silence offends Slanesh.
Offends Slanesh.
Slanesh,
spoiler.
Prince of pleasure, she who thirsts.
Ooh, what picture is that? That
is our fourth
Chaos God with
the sacred number of 6 adorning their title. Slanesh is a bit of a tricky one, because with our other 3 Chaos Gods, there was a certain understanding of human emotions and desires, but for Slanesh, that desire is how they get their power. The words to be used would be decadence, pleasure, perfection, passion, excess, and many others. The pursuit of more. The want to do more, experience more, become more. That's what gives.
I do like Slanesh's greater demon, the way it looks, like that, Nakari and stuff like that. It looks badass.
And it makes sense why they assumed that. The visuals of Slanesh patrons are all very lithe and sexual, but they are also intentionally androgynous to appear attractive to a variety of intrigues. However, to think that Slanesh specifically derives from sex would be mistaken. While it is true that a lot of humanity's actions can relate to getting laid, and Slanesh is the dark prince of desire, it's more on the lines of feeling an excess of an emotion. It is excessive touch and scent and desire. And a lot of that has to do with sex. That's why it looks like sex. But it's more than just that.
Right.
A patron of the arts may feed Slaanesh. One that aspires to become the perfect chef or master of their craft. And the sheer pursuit of that alone will feed Slaanesh. Whiplash is Slaanesh's absolute favorite film. Videos where people beat Elden Ring on a dance pad feed Slaanesh.
There are no two words in the English language
Okay, yeah.
more harmful than good job.
But is there a line?
No, man, no.
This also moves into the concept of feeling. Sensation is a majorly Slaanesh-coded thing. It might start off feeling good, but then you get to play around
Then it
a
gets
little
worse
bit, you know?
and
Play with a little
worse
bit of
and
pain.
worse.
Light pain might not be enough, so you might want more. Or inflicting the pain could be your jam. Music can increase to volumes that may hurt your ears, and even then that might not be enough. More. You must have more.
Exactly.
Many of the disciples of Slaanesh carry a demonic form in their lithe grace. The Keeper of Secrets is his chosen envoy, and their movements are a blur of dance and pain.
And they
with
do
an
look really
aura
cool,
all
though.
the more fatal. They dance and sing, but there's always a form of malice behind every action they
Of course.
take. An alluring gaze that will pull you in right before the demonic entity can crush you in that grip.
Yep.
Slaanesh's palace has 6 layers surrounding it, and one of them is the excess of gluttony, where the participant finds themselves in a beautiful banquet full of the most delicious foods imaginable. Tables of delicacies and rivers of wine tempt the user to such a degree that they cannot stop stuffing their face, unaware that the things they are eating are very vaguely familiar meat. If one does not see themselves drowning in the river of wine, they may soon fill their bodies up so much that they cease to function and fall over, becoming part of the banquet themselves. That is one of the 6 layers of Slaanesh's palace. This was the ecstasy that the Eldar
Now, see, that model looks
civilization
awesome.
indulged in for
That model looks
millennia,
really cool.
and did so at a monumental scale that they created a god from it. Find pleasure in every moment. Indulge in every whim. Let lesser races feel the burden of their crude lives. We are beyond such concerns or worries. Every power is ours to use. Every sensation ours to experience. We are truly masters of the galaxy, and all others exist only to satisfy our curiosities. We have earned our position of power. Let us forever taste the fruits of such achievement. Time itself is ours to command. We are eternal. With the birth of Slaanesh, the Eldari Empire ceased to be.
Yep.
A catastrophic event so horrible that the warp ripped a hole permanently in our reality.
The
a
Eye
vision
of
forever
Terror.
known as the Eye of Terror. With the sudden inhalation of this god's largest breath, the Eldari souls are a currency to be now collected by she who thirsts. Trillions of Eldar died in an instant. Slaanesh gorging
That is
on their
crazy.
souls to satisfy his
Just how
talent.
many of them just died immediately.
99.9% of their entire species died,
Yep.
and the rest are doomed to a fate worse than death. For Slaanesh now stakes a claim on each and every Eldar soul. From the moment they pass on, an eternity of torment awaits them. The remaining Eldar devote their
That is
entire
horrifying.
lives
Can
to
you just
stopping this event.
imagine? Can you just imagine that? Like, as soon as you die, you're going straight to Slaanesh, and you know what awaits you there. That is horrifying. Just knowing, like, time is slowly ticking down, and you know what your fate, your future, is going to be.
Sensuality. Their dying race so devoted to saving themselves from the Dark Prince, and, in doing so, have found very creative ways.
The Craft World
In the
Eldar.
modern world of Warhammer, the Craft World Eldar are the main force of Eldar in the galaxy and represent the elf style that many think of when you think elves in space. Fantasy
The good side.
elves in space, not those elves. We'll get to them. A craft world is a monumentally large starship, the size of a continent, that acts as a form of flotilla. During the highest reaches of hedonism, many Eldar saw the demonic writing on the wall and began to try and seek asylum from their own debauchery. Those Eldar left on monumental craft worlds into the far reaches of the galaxy and saved
Peace out.
themselves from Slaaneish's awakening. The main thing the craft world Eldar seek is to temper their minds and bodies in a way that will never allow them to slide back into their old ways. The representation they carry is that of a more feudal Japanese motif. Eldar follow paths as they age, the path of the warrior, the seer, the poet, the diplomat, the bone singer, and so on. These paths are a strict code of conduct.
Interesting.
To hone the heightened Eldar psychology down a school.
See, I don't know much about the
in
Eldar. I
action.
never really
And
played
if
them.
it sounds a hell of a lot like Bushido, well, you're damn right. Here's a medal and a soul stone. Don't lose it or an eternity of torment awaits you. Going through these paths will allow you to take up not just a role in Eldar society, but keep your mind clear from the past worries that plagued them. Every Eldar is said to be a psyker, however, very few of them actually utilize their psychic powers for fear of tempting she who thirsts. A large amount of emphasis is also put on ancestors of the Eldar and learning from them the farther you go down a path. This can sometimes be seen by the large variety of jewels adoring the armor of Eldar. Those are called soul stones, the biggest middle finger to Slaanesh they can think of. See, when an Eldar dies, these stones act as a backup, and instead of their souls going to Slaanesh, they are then trapped and stored in this little stone. So when the Eldar say they commune with their ancestors, they mean so very literally, as the spirit and soul of generations before them.
Interesting.
Are
I didn't know
stored
that.
Here, often larger structures may contain vast amounts of soul stones, such as the Infinity
So if you
Stone
lose
in the
those soul
craft world
stones-
itself, allowing the souls of the dead to help power
Kinda screwed.
their enormous starship. The young do
Or
not
if a
desire the
demon
discipline of the past,
takes
but
those-
rather their curiosity drives them to try every fruit
Yeesh.
from the tree. Thus, it is that so many take the path of wandering or the path of damnation in their first years of adulthood. And so, the great tragedy of our kind is played out again and again as the number of our people shrink from generation to generation. These paths, when completed, allow an Eldar to move to the next one, then the next one.
That's a
However,
pretty cool
since
picture.
this is the grim darkness of the world, many of these paths rely on combat. The Eldar actually had gods at one point. Cain, Vol, Isha, Azaryan,
Vol?
and so on. These gods are aspects of
I know
the
Isha.
Eldar
What was the other
pantheon,
one?
And while
Wait, what was the other one? I don't know anything about the Eldar's gods except for obviously Cain. I know Isha, but who was the other one?
Azaryan and so
Azaryan?
on. These gods are aspects of the Eldar pantheon, and while many were killed
have to find a
in
video on
Slaanesh's
those.
creation, their teachings live on. For some, the strongest devotion to the Eldar gods is to join the Aspect Warriors and embody the wrath of Cain, their god of war. While guardians of the Eldar craft worlds are more akin to a trained militia, the Aspect Warriors embody a particular variant of the path. Each are led by a Phoenix Lord, a name passed down from
Phoenix
generations,
Lord,
and
okay.
embodying the souls of prior Phoenix Lords with each new one. The Howling Banshees, led by Jane Czar, Fugin and his Fire Dragons, Baharoth and his Swooping Hawks, or Malgan Ra and his Dark Reapers. Each aspect shrine carries with it the Eldar way of war.
What about the Striking
Fast,
Scorpions?
hard-hitting, and incredibly tricksy, for they do not have the numbers to fight in any other way. The Craftworld Eldar show how mangled an empire can be by their own actions. They once ruled the galaxy in an honest, non-hyperbolic way, but in the end, they were bested by themselves, and their most prominent remnants are forced to drift aimlessly through the galaxy, trying to save their species from extinction and resist the temptations of she who thirsts.
Now I see why the Eldar need the Imperium around, because I think in one video, I don't remember whose video it was, but I think there was some sort of treaty. I wish I could remember what video it was from, or how it was explained. But I think there was some sort of there is some sort of treaty with the Eldar, I forget who signed it, if it was Gilliman or not, that in a dire situation, like if Terra was like about to fall, the Eldar would come to their aid and help them. I don't remember what video that was from. I don't remember if it is true or not. I mean, in a way, it would make sense if you kind of think about it. You know, the Eldar is a small, dying race, and the Imperium is so vast and large. How many battles is the Imperium fighting on currently at the moment? We'll say like 100 different battlefronts. So, you know, you got Imperial Guard over here fighting off this. You know, you got some Space Marines and Imperial Guard fighting off this. You got another battlefront over here, another, you know, all these different battlefronts fighting on all these different planets and stuff like that. Holding all these, you know, different enemies at bay. Maybe they're fighting Chaos. Maybe this one over here is fighting Orcs. This one's fighting Tyranids. You know, this is fighting Tau or whatever, you know. And then if the Imperium just goes away, there's no one on those battlefields left. All those enemies now are free to roam. And yeah, they'll go after each other, but whose other sides are they on? So now Chaos and Orcs could be like, ooh, look at them pointy ear things. Let's both go after them. And now both of them are going after them. Do they have enough to hold back, you know, both enemies? Maybe, maybe not. But when you had the Imperium around, yeah, they were holding back all these different armies and stuff, and now they're gone. Just saying. So I don't know if that is true or not. I just remember hearing it in some sort of video, so I don't know if it is true. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it would kind of make sense, you know?
But for some, the party, it's just beginning. Deep within the webway is the city of Kamara.
That's
this
right.
dark city once existed as a port in the webway that allowed for ease of transport for the Eldar between its various domains. The significance of this city meant that it needed to be a bit more of a neutral territory outside of the jurisdiction of general Eldar law, and therefore it was allowed to self-govern. This did not go well. The dark city became the hideaway for all manner of sin. The Eldar race slipped into debauchery on a galactic scale that it birthed a god, and this was the city you went to when that wasn't enough for you. The convenience of being so deep within the webway was that it exists as a blind spot to the horrors of the warp. So while the rest of the Eldar fled the downfall of their species, Kamara kept partying.
It
When
flourished.
Slaanesh was birthed, they were saved the worst of it, thanks to them being nice and neatly tucked away inside the webway. But only somewhat. The Dark Prince did not have a grip around their soul, but the tiniest pinky finger, and they were still pulling. But due to their excess hedonism,
Gonna
they
get ya.
found a solution
Gonna
to
get ya.
this problem. If they tormented others, they could temporarily rejuvenate their souls and continue to cheat their inevitable death by placating the Prince of Pleasure. And if they kept this up on the regular, they could effectively become immortal. Thus, the Drukhari were born. Unlike the more stoic elves you see in works of fiction, the Drukhari themselves exist as a sort of analog of the more grim and fiendish elves you find in Norse and European mythology.
Okay.
The Drukhari are soul vampires, but the more basic means to feed are hardly enough to keep them going. This desire to feed is known as the thirst, and to quench it effectively, they have mastered the art of biotechnology and dark sciences to really juice themselves up on the crispy soul sprite from the vending machine called the Galaxy. The majority of Drukhari act as pirates and raiders and slavers. They go into our physical reality and drag people back to Kamara to commit atrocities that go beyond
you don't
any
want that.
imaginative torture a human can think of. The Drukhari are organized in various groups throughout the Dark City to accomplish this in a more organized and extremely brutal way. The Cabals act as the main warriors of the city,
the
led by
Cabals.
their archons. Witches and succubi act as entertainment for Kamara in gladiatorial arenas, and the flesh-crafting homunculus keep the Drukhari alive and discover ever increasingly more painful ways to torment their ever increasingly large supply of slaves they are brought. The Dark Eldar see the other inhabitants of the galaxy as little more than cattle. Livestock.
I wonder, could any army actually invade Kamara? If so, who and how would that go?
Is not meat and muscle, but the anguish and despair of
like if the orcs just sent a giant log just to go after Kamara, how would that play out? You know, would they?
Essence of pain.
Would the Dark Eldar survive? Would they lose?
The truth of the matter is that Drukhari sustain themselves on the suffering of others, not just morally but physically. Kamara is a city rife with backstabbing schemes and murder. It is the worst back alleys of the worst ghettos at the best of times. Nothing is more horrifying to a Drukhari than death, for death will see them in the talons of Slaanesh for an eternity of torment. So they do everything they can to stop this. The homunculi covens regrow dead members from pieces of flesh.
That was horrifying, especially that other half of his face.
Create grisly gladiatorial spectacles that literally rejuvenate the audience members as captives are murdered for sport. To be captured by the Drukhari is one of, if not the worst fate imaginable in the world of Warhammer 40k. In a universe built on war crimes, they are the most debased war crimers of all time. To be tortured and sacrificed in the gladiatorial arenas is a blessing, for you have escaped the fate of being in these flesh smiths control group, or being turned into a living and breathing piece of furniture for an Archon's quarters. In a cruel twist of fate, a newly born Drukhari does not arrive into this world loving torture. It is something they must grow to love. Grow to appreciate the suffering of other beings in order to survive in the world they have been brought into. If they succeed, they become some of the worst monsters in the known galaxy. A dark reflection to the craft worlders and a taste of what Eldar society was like before the fall. If they do not succeed, they must find purchase elsewhere. Often those will join smaller parts of Eldar society like the Exodites or the Harlequins. Exodites believe in a pre-industrial variant of their society, often retreating to more lush worlds to ride
so they can just leave if they don't go along
style
with the way things are?
I would laugh at if they weren't riding dinosaurs like ballers. The Harlequin dancing troupe are a subsect of Eldar that are more than just a little strange. A carnival of dancing jesters that serve
those are actually kind of cool.
Laughing god
Not gonna lie.
They arrive never when expected and leave just as quickly. Blurs of light carry their footsteps as they dance their foes into a grave. Combat is just as much of a joke as it is a play on bloody murder. They travel and aid many other Eldar and sometimes even humanity for reasons we can never understand. Perhaps one day...
Really? They aid humanity? Really? Interesting. Is there any times, what times have they actually aided humanity? Now I'm kind of curious, you know? That's very interesting. Apparently, so was all Eldar, like, kind of neutral with... No, I don't think... Are they all neutral with each other? I know, like, the Harlequins apparently are, like, neutral. They can go to the craft world and meet with them, but they can also go to the Drukhari and also meet with them and, you know, like, respect, you know? But yeah, that's just very interesting.
We would have, were they not stripped of their army book and folded into the Eldari Codex. So I suppose it'll have to stay a mystery, or maybe it was one of Kakarok's master plans to get back at She Who Thirsts and save their species. Who could know? Perhaps it was all a sick and practical joke to Kakarok, and he would just find it very funny to watch me fumble the discussion of one human on a tiny blue planet across the galaxy. Oh, speaking of.
All right, so I am going to call it here, because, yep, here we go, the Imperium of Man, and I am sure that is going to be a very big chunk of video. So that was very cool, very interesting. You know, obviously the Chaos Gods, the 3 of them at the time, and then of course the birth of the 4th one, everything Eldar did. Yeah, once again, another really good video. I am really enjoying this video and just going from all the timeline and lore and stuff like that, and just the way it's flowing as compared to like his previous videos where it's like, yep, this is just the Imperium, man, this is what happened, this is the next race, this is the next race, this is the next race. So yeah, I do like the way everything is definitely flowing from Craftworld, Eldar, to the Drukhari, to the Harlequins, and then the what was the other one? The ones with the dinosaurs?
Society was like before the fall. If they do not succeed, they must find purchase elsewhere.
So if a Dark Eldar is born and they don't go along with the pain and torture, they're just free to leave? You kind of figure they'd kill them. You know, well, if you're not going along with us, then we're going to kill you. But apparently they're just free to leave? And they can join either the Harlequins or...
Often those will join smaller parts of Eldar society like the Exodites or the
Exodites. I haven't really heard too much really about them.
Harlequins. Exodites believe in a pre-industrial variant.
I mean, that is kind of cool. Who wouldn't want to ride a dinosaur? Like, come on. But yeah, that's just very interesting that a Dark Eldar that's born that doesn't go along with their thing is just kind of like just cast out. Like, sorry, not part of us, you gotta leave. And then can go off and join either one of those. That's just very interesting. I feel they just, like I said, just kill it and be like, oh well, sorry, you're not, you know, if you're not going along with us, you know. But that was just very interesting. So yeah, there we go. So we had Chaos and we had Eldar. Very cool. Once again, awesome video. And yeah, next time it is going to be the Imperium. So make sure I go back just in, went too far. Yeah, no, there we go. Yeah, I know the Imperium is going to take up a very big chunk of video, so that's going to be very cool. But yeah, so there we go. There is my part 2 of his every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained. Once again, this is an awesome video. But anyways, let me know, what did you guys think about the video? Yeah, I was going to think of another question to ask, but I can't really, can't think of anything. Just let me know what you guys think about the video. What do you think about the Harlequins aiding the Imperium? You know, when have they done that? How often have they done that? What instances have they done that? Let me know, because now I'm kind of curious. You kind of don't figure they would aid the Imperium, but let alone they did. And what do you think about that treaty I mentioned? Is that an actual thing that, you know, the Eldar, I don't know if it's the Eldar or a specific craft world like Baeltan and stuff like that would come to the aid of the Imperium in their time of need? You know, is that true? Is that not? Once again, like I said, I can't remember if, you know, what video that was from and stuff. You know, do you think that does make sense? You know, since the Imperium is so large and they are fighting on so many different fronts against so many different enemies, if they were to fall, or, you know, hey, the, you know, Terra is about to collapse and fall because they're being invaded by Tyranids, and they start to recall all their forces back to Terra, like, all right, you're on all these different planets, you need to come back to Terra, you know, red alert, you know. Well, now everything we're fighting, is now free to roam, and what if some of those armies roam into a craft world, you know, a craft world ship? You know, you know, here's Chaos and orcs, you know, maybe we can take them on, maybe we can't. Do we want to take that chance? Probably not, you know. And now you're in pursuit by 2 different enemies, you know, because now the Imperium's not holding them back. They had to go back to Terra to handle stuff there, you know. So let me know what you guys think about that. But other than that, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my video, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on social media. And other than that, just stick around. More videos are on the way, and I will see you guys next time.